Hello, everyone. It's delightful to be with you today to celebrate spring. I'd like to acknowledge that the program today takes place on the traditional territories of the Indigenous signatories to Treaty 7. That includes the Blackfoot nations of Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai, the Dene Sarsi of Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda of Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley First Nations. We also walk in the footsteps of the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We are all treaty people. May we live with respect for this land and between all nations. But spring in Calgary can seem like something that exists maybe beyond the rainbow. First song today is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. When all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a magic highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I? Now, my first story today is about the seasons. Now, we all learn in school that the seasons have to do with the direction of the earth in relation to the sun, but the ancient Greeks had an altogether different idea about how the seasons came to be. And this is a story about that. It's a myth, and it's called The Abduction of Persephone. We are here in the Vale of Enna, by a lake embowered in woods in the region of Sicily. A terrible crime was committed here some time ago, the abduction of Persephone. My name is Dorothea Artemis, and I was an eyewitness to that heinous event. I remember it as if it were yesterday. Persephone and I, and some of our companions, were gathering lilies and violets, collecting them in our baskets and in our aprons, when suddenly the mighty god Pluto, god of the underworld, swept in on his horse-drawn chariot and snatched Persephone away. She screamed for help from us and from her mother, Demeter, the goddess of the harvest and agriculture. But we were powerless to help her, and her mother Demeter was nowhere nearby. Pluto called out to each of his jet black steeds by name, urging them on. tossing loose over their heads and necks the iron-colored reins. We saw them in the distance arrive at the river Cyane. Unable to cross, Pluto took his trident and plunged it into the riverbank. The earth opened up, and he and Persephone and the horse-drawn chariot disappeared into the earth. And that is when we knew that he was taking Persephone to the depths of Tartarus, the realm of the dead, the underworld. Demeter was none too pleased that I and my companions had been unable to protect her precious daughter from this dark lord. Well, I bowed before her in regret, all the while thinking, how was I supposed to take on the mighty god Pluto and those infernal horses? Well, I must admit, I did not tell Demeter that her daughter had been taken to the underworld. I just told her we had lost sight of her at the river Cyane. Well, she began a search the world over for her daughter. She traveled from land to land, across seas and rivers. Well, from the dawn of Aurora to when Hesperus released the stars, she searched, but of course she could not find her. At last she came back and stood on the banks of the river Cyane, and that is when she blamed the innocent land for the loss of her daughter. She cried out, "Ungrateful soil, which I have endowed with fertility and clothed in herbage and nourishing grain, no longer shall you enjoy my favors." And that is when the earth died. The cattle perished, the plow broke in the furrow, the seeds failed to sprout. First there was too much sun, then there was too much rain. The birds stole the seeds, but only thistles and brambles grew. Thankfully, Arethusa stepped in to save the day. Arethusa is a river nymph from the land of Elis. She encountered the goddess on the banks of the river Cyane, and she said, "Goddess, do not blame the innocent land, for it yielded unwillingly to Pluto's criminal act." She explained to Demeter that she was from the land of Elis and that she's a river nymph, and well, she explained that she was trying to escape the unwanted advances of one of the river gods there, Alpheus. But unable to do so, she had cried out to the goddess Diana for help. Well, Diana had opened up the earth for Arethusa to escape from Alpheus, and as she descended into the cavern, into the depths of the earth, she told Demeter, "I saw your daughter." But she did not look sad. She had the bearing of royalty. "Your daughter is the queen of the underworld." Demeter was shocked by that news. Her daughter? The queen of the underworld? Outrageous! But she had no reason to doubt Arethusa's word, and so she approached the god, the king of all gods, Jupiter, to help her secure her daughter's release. Jupiter agreed that he could work with Pluto to have her daughter released as long as Persephone had not taken any food while she was in the underworld, for if she had, the fates would not allow her release. Winged Mercury accompanied Demeter to the underworld to negotiate for Persephone's release. Well, Pluto was amenable, but alas, Persephone had sucked on a few pomegranate seeds that her shrewd and wily husband had given her, and so she could not be released outright. But a compromise was reached. Persephone would spend half the year above ground with her mother, and half the year below ground with her husband, Pluto. Well, it was the best that Demeter could hope for, and so she restored the earth to favor. and things began to grow again. And that was the beginning of the seasons. When Persephone is above ground with her mother, well, then Demeter's mood is warm and light, and it is summer. And when she is down in the underworld with Pluto, well, Demeter's mood is cold and dark, and it is winter. And what of spring and fall, you might ask? Well, in the fall, it takes some time for Demeter's mood to descend into darkness after her daughter leaves. And in the spring, when Persephone returns, well, it takes some time for Demeter's mood to thaw. The jug on the rock. Once, long ago in Tibet, there was a Dara seller. Now, he made some of the most delicious Dara in the whole region. Now, Dara is yogurt milk, delicious creamy yogurt milk. And that is how he made his living. Well, he would prepare the Dara in a great big jug. And then he would carry that jug through the town and call out, Dara for sale, fresh Dara for sale. And then people would come to the door with their own smaller decanters, and he would tip some of his Dara from the jug into their decanter. They would pay him and he would be on his way, kind of like the milkman. Now, this is how he made his living. He made a decent living. He was able to look after his own family and even to care for his aging parents. As he was wont to do at around noon every day, well, he sat down to have his lunch. Well, he first set his jug down on a big rock, and then he himself sat on another rock, and he took out his delicious momo dumplings that his wife made for him for lunch every day, and he began to eat his delicious dumplings. Well, it was a beautiful scene before him, much like the scene behind me today. Beautiful, bucolic scene, but there were goat herders and there were goats in the field, and the goats were gambling about, jumping and frolicking. Everyone was so happy that spring had arrived because it had been a long, hard winter. Well, one of the goat herders called out to the Dara seller, a hearty hello. Tashidele, he said. Well, the Dara seller was equally enthusiastic and called back in a loud voice, Tashidele, which means hello in Tibetan. Now, one of the little goats that was nearby, well, was startled by the stranger's voice, so loud and robust, and so he jumped and kicked his heels and kicked the jug right off the rock. The jug smashed to the ground, and all of that beautiful Dara went flowing away through the grass. The Dara seller was horrified. He jumped off the rock, and he called out to the goat herder, your goat, he said, your goat has knocked my jug off, and that jug I need for my living. I look after my family. If I don't have a jug and I don't have any money to buy a new jug, you must buy me a new one. Your goat is the one who broke it. Well, the goat herder, he was sympathetic to the Dara seller's plight, but he said, I cannot be responsible for something that my goat does by accident. You should have chosen a better place to put your jug down. Well, the two men argued about it for the better part of the afternoon, and they decided they could not resolve it between the two of them, and they needed a judge. Well, the judge in Tibet in that time, well, was a monk who sat out in front of the temple every day in the town square to hear cases just like this one. So the two men went to the town square and presented their cases to the monk one at a time. The monk listened very thoughtfully to each man's story, and at the end he said, this is indeed a difficult case. It is a conundrum, for I can see that the Dara seller needs his jug to look after his family and his aging parents, and, well, the goat herder, well, he needs all his goats to make a living. If he has to sell some goats to buy a jug, then that will hurt his income. He says, really, it's neither of your faults that this happened. It is the fault of the rock and the goat. Well, the two men looked at each other and they were quite surprised, but of course they were not going to question the judgment of the monk. And so they went to gather the two culprits. Well, the goat came to the town square easily enough, but the rock, it took 20 men to drag it from where it was. Word of this rock being moved spread throughout the town and the surrounding countryside, and everybody dropped what they were doing to come and hear this case being heard in the town square. More and more people gathered as the rock was dragged into the town square. Soon the whole square was full of people. Well, the case was just about to start, and people were waiting anxiously to see what would happen. And well, they were murmuring to each other and then snickering behind their hands. And then suddenly somebody guffawed, and then everyone began to laugh and laugh. The monk stood up and he looked around at all the people gathered and he said, "Well, all of you would dare doubt my judgment? You think I will not try this goat and this rock? Well, you have all done a bad turn, and you must pay a fine. 1 giazzo for each of you." Everyone looked at each other, and 1 giazzo was not very much. It was barely worth anything. Everyone had a giazzo in their pocket. And so they agreed. Of course, they had to. And the monk carried a basket, and he carried it around the town square and collected 1 giazzo from every man, woman, and child gathered there. Soon the basket was full, and he brought it over to the Dara seller. And he gave it to him, and he said, "This should buy you a new jug." And that is exactly what the Dara seller did. He took all those giazzos and he bought a new jug. And every time he walked through the town after that, he called out heartily and kindly to everyone he met. "Tashidele, tashidele," he would say, for he knew that everyone had given a little so that he could have a lot. Now this next song is all about springtime in the Rockies. If you know it, do sing along. When it's springtime in the Rockies, I'll be coming back to you, little sweetheart of the mountains, with your bonny eyes of blue. Once again I'll say I love you, while the birds sing all the day. When it's springtime in the Rockies, far away. One more time now. When it's springtime in the Rockies, I'll be coming back to you, little sweetheart of the mountains, with your bonny eyes of blue. Once again I'll say I love you, while the birds sing all the day. When it's springtime in the Rockies, far away. Thank you so much for joining me for Let's Celebrate Spring. I wish you all a wonderful spring, and I'll see you again soon.